Thanks for joining us for another episode of DPC Radio. This episode was recorded live in Amsterdam at the Dutch PHP Conference 2012. For more information about the Dutch PHP Conference, visit our website, phpconference.nl.
Hi everybody. I have to apologize for my voice, but the social was just awesome yesterday. Too awesome. So, you know. Welcome, Puppet for Dummies. Let me introduce myself for the ones who don't know me, which is strange because I'm world famous by now. My name is Thijssen. I'm a Dutch guy. I'm a freelance consultant, developer, and trainer at my own company. I do development, PHP normally, but I also do some Python, some Java, some C, and some other stuff. I do have a blog where I do stuff on Puppet as well. So if you have questions or want to do, like, read more about the subject, just go to my blog. It's a lot of posts there on them. Of course, my email address and my Twitter handle in case you want to follow me. And, well, I wouldn't suggest it, but if you want to, you can. So today I want to try to answer two questions. What is Puppet and why should I care? I want to start with the last part. The reason why you should care is pretty much this quote. It's like people are finally figuring out Puppet and how it gets you into the pub by 4 p.m. Note that I've been at this pub since 2 p.m. At this point, I don't care what Puppet is. I don't care how much it's going to cost. I need it. I want it. On another side, this is a guy from London. He's like a DevOps guy, if you know the term. Really great guy. And he says, well, do you know how we call adding monitoring over 30 websites, 10 servers, and 50 services on those servers? It's called a Puppet run. And you have to realize that a Puppet run is something that has been done every 30 minutes. So in 30 minutes time, they managed to have 30 websites completely monitored. And that's like really awesome stuff. Now, Puppet by itself is not the solution for the following problem. How do we set up, manage, synchronize, and upgrade our internal and external infrastructure? And by this time, there's a lot of people are thinking this right now. Like, it's not my job. It's like, it's the sysadmin guy. Well, no, it isn't. And this is pretty much the reason, because like a few years ago, we were all dealing with something called a LAMP stack, which everybody knows is like Windows, Nginx, and Postgres, and Java. But now, it was like LAMP, but nowadays, it's this. And this is not exaggerated, because they're like, everybody has at least know or used at least like 5 of those components, at least, right? So what's happening here is that like your application is not like the heart of well, it still is the heart, like, you know, it's not this is it. No, it's just like a small cog in a machine of the whole infrastructure. Like you need Solr for your database searches. For your searches, you need like maybe CouchDB for your NoSQL solutions to get like all the documents in. You're using Memcache, you're using like all the other infrastructure and all the other components in your system. It's not just like your PHP application anymore. So the infrastructure is getting like more and more complex over the past few years. So how do we control our infrastructure? And there are pretty much 3 solutions for that. At least I came up with 3 solutions. First one, we don't, which is a viable solution, to be honest. The second one, we outsource. And the third one, we automate the process. And the first one, it actually isn't that funny, because in small companies, you find it more often than not. Who is working for a company with 10 developers or less, or 10 employees or less? That's actually not much, but that's okay. 50 or less? Do you guys have like a complete operations team, like a system administrator or like 10 system administrators? Okay, that's pretty okay. But what's happening, especially in the smaller web development companies, there's like the internal sysadmin who's doing programming, And on the side, he does all the system administration stuff. So that's the guy who said on his resume, like, I can do Linux. So he's like, okay, you will be our system administrator for everything we have, like a whole infrastructure. But normally he's just too busy doing programming. And he's only acting on escalation. So by the time something goes up in smoke and something goes down, that's the point where that guy comes in and tries to fix things. So it's acting on escalation. So it's reactive. It's not proactive. But then again, yeah, it's a solution that pretty much works for like small companies. Well, the second one, it's also used a lot. It's like outsourcing, which means you have somebody else who takes care of all your infrastructure, which means expensive server-level agreements. But you're only taking care of your external stuff, not your internal stuff. Like if you have internal servers, internal development servers, or whatever you want inside, they don't manage that. It's still your responsibility. And this is always a fight between stability and agility. Because as a PHP programmer, of course, we want to run on PHP 5.4 and do all the neat stuff, like now. But your operations guy, or in this case, the company, said, no. 5.2 or 5.1 it's okay. It's like stable right now. Let's just use that. So it's always a conflict between those two things. So what you get is that your hosting company is going to decide on whether or not you're going to use PHP 5.3. This is actually real life scenario that somebody says, no, we cannot upgrade to 5.3 because we don't support it. So the next solution, and this is the one we're going to talk about, is, okay, let's do it ourselves and automate all the things. And this is really nice because then we are in charge of everything. You can do whatever you like. So if you want to support 5.2, that's fine, you can do it. If you want to support 5.4, that's fine too, you can do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to use like special tools for that. Most of you might have heard of Puppet and Chef and CF Engine. Does anyone know any one of these three? Why are you here? Now, it's like, these are like the tools you can use to automate all the stuff. So if you do this right, then maintenance of your internal and external infrastructure isn't really that difficult. Of course, your hosting company will say, yeah, it is very difficult, but in essence, it isn't. So what I'm going to do today is talk about Puppet. There are other viable solutions. I just like Puppet. Puppet is an open source configuration management tool. It's written by Puppet Labs. It used to be called Reductive Labs, and it's written in Ruby. So I apologize for that, but it works. It's actually open source, so you can use it, you can patch it, you can do all your stuff with it. So it's on GitHub. And there's a commercial version available called Puppet Enterprise, which is more or less like the Red Hat stuff, like the commercial Red Hat. So you buy service and pretty much consulting. So everything you want, you're going to get on the open source version, you're going to get in a commercial version. There's nothing else in a commercial version that you can't get through the open source version. And the neat thing about Puppet is that you're going to tell it, or actually you don't tell it how to do stuff, you tell it what to do. And this is like a really, completely the world around. Because normally you're going to say to a system, if you want to install a web server, you're going to say, well, yum install HTTPD, or apt-get install Apache 2 if you want to install it on like a CentOS server or a Debian server, for instance. However, in Puppet, or in Puppet speak, you're going to say, I just want you to install and run the Apache web server. I don't care how you do it, just do it. Which is a completely different way. We never said, like, how to do it. It's just different. So, Puppet by itself, if you read into Puppet and everything, you might notice that people are using it for like thousands and thousands of servers. It doesn't have to be. Like, this is a schematic representation of Puppet infrastructure, and this is it. Can't be that complex, right? Now, you can actually use Puppet on your own system, so it controls your own system. It's perfectly valid to do it this way. However, if you're going to use it in, for instance, hosting and stuff like that, you want to do it a client-server version, which we have 3 components in this case. We have a Puppet master, which is going to decide what needs to be done. You've got the Puppet agent, which is the server you're going to, puppeteer, or you're going to run Puppet on. And the communication is done through HTTPS. And HTTPS means like certifications and all that kind of stuff. That is actually dealt by Puppet itself through the Puppet CA. So normally the Puppet CA is on the same server as the Puppet master, and you don't have to worry about certifications or certificates and stuff like that. The whole HTTPS stuff, it's like completely transparent, which is really nice. And this you can just, scale out. You can have like 3 agents here, and they all communicate with the Puppet master. The Puppet master itself can be scalable as well, and the CA server can scale as well. So it's like a really simple system, and you can just expand that like, I don't know how much. So what's happening when you do like a Puppet run in this case? What's going to happen is that an agent will call the master. So it's not the master that's going to decide, oh, you need to do this. No, an agent is going to call the master and is going to say, what do I need to do? Because of that, the agent will send like facts to the master. It's going to say, this is me, this is, how many memory I have, this is my operating system, this is my uptime. Stuff like that will get sent to the master. Those are called facts. At that point, the master will create a catalog from the manifest and facts and send that to the agent. We'll talk about the manifest a little bit later on. But a catalog is just like, this is the requirement list. You have to make sure that that this is what you're going to do. The agent will actually set up according to that catalog. So again, the master does not care how you do it. It's up to the agent. So if it's going to say install a web server, it can do it through like yum install or apt-get, or if it wants to get a carrion pigeon over to there and get the source code and type it in, doesn't matter. It's up to the agent to actually do it. And at that point, the agent will return the status to the master. So it's going to say, yeah, I did it, or, I failed because, my pigeon died, or, whatever happened. So the catalogs I was talking about, they're like compiled manifests. So there's like bytecode, more or less. The manifest itself are the Puppet definitions. Those are like the source code you're going to configure. Those manifests are written in files, and normally they're called filename.pp. I don't know what pp stands for. I know one of them probably will be Puppet. The other one, no clue. But they're written in a specific Puppet DSL, domain-specific language, which is really easy. If you can't understand Puppet DSL, you shouldn't do programming anyway. It's like it's that easy. It isn't Ruby. It's like Ruby-esque, maybe. But, even I understand it. So that's, that says something. However, this is a declarative language. And this is like different from us because we're using PHP, which is like an imperative language. One of the biggest side effects is that there is no ordering. We'll talk about that later, but that can be like really, really annoying if you not take that into account. But that's what's happening because it's declarative. A really nice thing is that you can version your manifests. You can actually, because it's like text files, you can put them in Git, you can put it on SVN, and you really should do it in like maybe 3 or 4 years' time when everybody is using Puppet, obviously. It's like so common that you version control your software, like it is now, but also version control your whole infrastructure. So if you start with Puppet, also start with versioning your manifests. That makes your life so much easier. So what are those manifests? My yellow is like really brown. Let's assume that this is yellow. So a manifest, in this case, it's got like 2 declarations. The first is it's a package, and it's going to say, okay, I want the strace package to be present. So if it's not there, install it. Again, I don't care how, just make sure the package strace is there. The second one, the file, I'm going to say there needs to be a file on this path named secret ingredient. It has to be present, so again, if it's not there, create it. It needs to be file mode 600, so it's only readable and writable for me. This is the user, this is the group, and the content of the file, because it's a secret ingredient, of course, is beer. So if the file is not present on the agent, in this case, it will create a file named beer. If there is already a file called secret ingredient with another text, like milk, it will just override it with beer again. So it's going to make sure that it actually is this state in the end. Is that clear? All right. I was talking about ordering, and for instance, this example, we got a package, HTTPD, which is the web server, or at least Apache web server. It's going to say, okay, make sure that it's present, make sure it's installed. But I never told it to actually run the web server. And we can do that with the service command or the service resource. I'm going to say service HTTPD, make sure it's running, so it's started, and make sure it's enabled, which means if you reboot the system, it will be run automatically again. However, because it's declarative and we don't have any ordering, if you're going to say run the service before you actually installed it, it cannot run the service because it's not there yet. So what you can say to Puppet, okay, if you're going to do the service HTTPD stuff, make sure you require the package HTTPD. So it knows that it needs to do this before this. Yeah? This is the way how ordering works in Puppet. This sounds like really strange for us because we're used top down. This is actually quite nice because this is get only the dependencies in and don't worry about anything else. I see a lot of people out there who's trying Puppet as manifests, and I see a lot of times that they have every declaration, they have a huge require line of everything else in there. If you need to do a lot of requirements, it probably means you're doing it wrong. The web server does not need to require the MySQL server, for instance, and it does not need to require the Solr service. However, if you want to install virtual host, you want to require the web server. But you don't need to, MySQL and stuff like that. So make sure that you have your dependency correct, but don't put requires on each and every declaration. Now, there's a thing here, because I showed you before, it's like the package HTTPD, and this will work on an agent that is running on a Debian-based system. On a CentOS-based system. But this does not work on a Debian-based system because Debian does not know HTTPD. They know the package Apache 2. So I was telling about okay, you need to install the web server, and that's the only thing you need to tell it. That's not really correct in this case because it needs to know the name of the package it needs to install. But it's quite easy to do that as well, because we have a switch statement, which is called, case. I'm going to say to the system, okay, the package name is Apache, so it's like a fake name we just use for us internally. We're going to say, okay, if the operating system is CentOS or Red Hat, package name will be HTTPD. Everybody can read what it's doing, right? If it's Debian Ubuntu, the package name will be Apache 2. If it's something else that's connecting to the system, like a Windows system, a Mac OS X, even Mint or, I don't know, any other kind of flavor, it's going to fail. I don't know this operating system or distribution, which means you probably have to, upgrade your manifest or maybe even reinstall it to a new OS or, do whatever. It just cannot do it through this manifest. Now, I'm going to say here, name is package name. So in this case, I'm going to tell the package, use the package name, which can be HTTPD or Apache 2. So I can use this manifest, at least this part of the system, on both CentOS systems and Debian systems. And this is what's happening a lot. If you're going to download manifests through the internet, you're going to find a lot of stuff like this. But you don't have to worry about it 9 out of 10 times, because they always take care of, like, okay, you want to install a web server. Depending on which distribution you have, we will, take care of which package you need. But if, in case you run into something like this is very easy to fix. And again, you see here the service Apache. I want to have it running. I want to have it enabled. And of course, I'm required the packet Apache, because that's the name we are using. You also see here that we have wrapped it in a class. This is not a PHP class. This is more like a namespace. So it's, yeah, they're Ruby, so they want to do things different. So it's not the same as class. You can do like other stuff with it, but just see this as a namespace for now. So I showed you here like the operating system, which is a fact. So it's, it depends on which client actually connects to your Puppet master. And the facts, if you are on a Puppet node, you can actually use a program called Factor. It isn't from Puppet itself, but Puppet uses it. You can install it by yourself. And if you're going to run Factor, you're going to get a list of all the facts of a system. So you're going to see here what kind of architecture you have, what the fully qualified domain name is, how many interfaces you have, which is nice if you're going to do like bindings of your services, which IP addresses, so you can make your own virtual hosts and make sure they bind it onto a single IP. And this is a huge list. You can add your own facts. For instance, if you're going to work with Send Server, I don't know how many of you do that. Have Send Server installed? Nobody? Okay, that's a shame. But anyway, if you're going to use Send Server, you cannot use their own, they have their own PHP binaries. So you need to use their own PHP binaries and install them. However, it doesn't know that, but it's really easy to write a fact that says, like, Send Server, like true or false, or 0 or 1. So you can use your manifest to see, hey, this is an agent calling from a Send Server system. Let's do something else than the normal Debians or the normal CentOS systems. So you can do all lots of things with it, and it's easy to expand if you want to. Now, these are like the manifest, or like the simple defines. But now we have to make sure that if somebody calls the Puppet master, that it actually gets the right manifests. And we do that by the node resource. What we're going to say here, if there's a node that is called web01.example.org, it checks this by the certificates it gets from the HTTPS. So these are the SSL names. If somebody connects through, that's called web01, it has to include the web server, which we just defined as install Apache and run Apache. However, if somebody connects to the Puppet master, that's like, this is a regular expression called db and then some numbers .example.org, so like db1 or db01.example.org. Don't install the web server, but install the MySQL server. So there's like, depending on the name of your agent that's going to connect, it has a different role into your system. So the only thing you have to do is have Puppet running, make sure you have the correct name, and then as soon as it calls, which is like every 30 minutes, it installs either a database server or a web server, which is really nice to do it like this. You can expand that. For instance, in this case, I got a web 01 and a web 02, and I'm going to say here, okay, I want to install a web server, but I want to do things like differently. Because the first node, it's going to be like web 01, but the second node will be like our CRM, like our backend system or whatever. So what we can do is we can give function of parameters, define parameters. We're going to say include the web server, which is like the package we defined earlier. And then that package, that class, can actually use these three to put them into the virtual host or whatever it wants to do with it. So you can use the same manifest, the same package, but for different purposes. If you're going to download Puppet and you're going to download the Puppet modules, then you will see a lot of Puppet modules are just like include Apache, or include MySQL, include memcache. And the only thing you have to do is say, for instance, in the memcache, you can only say, like, this is the port it needs to listen to, this is the amount of memory it needs, include, and you're done. So with only like 3 lines of code, you can install a memcache server on all your systems in like 30 minutes, from which 27 minutes is just waiting until the Puppet agent kicks in. So this is like totally awesome. So what can Puppet control and configure? Almost everything. And it really can, because they have a resource called exec, which can execute scripts or anything else. So if you can type it on your computer or type it in the console, you can do it through Puppet. So there's no things you can't really do with it. So you got the file, I already told you. That's like files and directories and symlinks. You can actually add cron jobs. So it takes care of cron jobs. You only say, this is my cron job, this is what you need to do, this is the time you need to do, and it will automatically take care of putting it into the right cron file. You don't have to worry about that. You can have SSH keys, so it can send over your own SSH keys. You can create users. So if you always have like a base user, like your own user, just put it in a manifest and it will automatically add it to that system so you can log in. You can even do like the security enhanced Linux, which is nice if you work on CentOS 6 and Red Hat 6. They have SA Linux enabled by default. This is a great way to disable it if you want to. But you can even control like Cisco routers and Windows machines too. So you can have your Cisco routers be controlled by Puppet, which for us isn't really that helpful because we don't really do routing stuff. But system administrators are like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, but it can do Windows too. I would not recommend it. But then again, I would not recommend Windows in the first place. But that's just me. But you can do it. Actually, the Puppet stuff from the last versions are really good when it comes to Windows. Now, I want to show you like an example on how do we implement Puppet and how we implement Puppet for us as a developer. And one of the best examples, basically because it's like pretty much written by me, is like the Join In website, which by now you have heard like a gazillion times during this conference. We managed to get Puppet into the Joined In. So if you want to contribute or want to do something with Joined In, you only have to clone this link and you press a command, which I will show later, and then it will do all kinds of stuff, also with Puppet. So you have your whole infrastructure up and running. So you don't have to install like your own database and install all the SQL files and make sure that this is running and this PHP flag is set on. It will automatically do that for you. So what's happening is like we've got a few files. In this case, I got like a parents.pp file. And this is nothing more than just a list of variables. This is like my config. And if you're going to see modules, most of them will look pretty similar, only a little bit different. But for instance, we can just say here, okay, this is my database name, this is my database password. But because we're doing development, it doesn't matter if it's like here. We can even say, do you want PHPMyAdmin, yes or no? If you're going to say false here, it won't install PHPMyAdmin. If it's true, like the default, it will install PHPMyAdmin. So you can configure on what to install. Now, what it's going to do, this is the only file, joinedin.pp, that's only does include the parents file we just saw and include the joined in file. The joined in file is actually a module. We're going to write a lot of modules when you're doing Puppet. This is the layout of the modules directory in the Puppet joined in. So this is the one we actually written. These three are externals going to another site because we're going to use their modules. That's the nice thing about Puppet. Most of the modules are just like drop-in. So if you're going to do MySQL and Apache, just get them in like this, and then you have MySQL and Apache running. We pretty much did the same thing with PHP, only there was a little thing wrong with it, so we have to get it over and change one thing, and But these are pretty much, well, actually these 4 are pretty much external. So the only thing we did was written the joined in module. So the joined in module, if you're going to write a module, the only thing you have to do is have a manifest directory and a file name called init.pp, which is like, you know, the entry point. Again, you see I put everything in a class, and I'm going to say include the setup, include the SQL, include the web, include the application. So it's going to do like setup stuff, make sure that the whole infrastructure is ready for the application. We're going to say install the SQL server. Well, actually, I don't say MySQL, could be Postgres, doesn't matter, just SQL. Install all the web stuff, and install the application stuff. And so if we want to do like, okay, this is getting too big, and we want to separate the database server from the web server, the only thing we have to do is get a few nodes where we leave the web server out of node 1, and we leave the SQL server out of node 2, pretty much. So it's very easy to separate and to move things to another server. And pretty much in 30 minutes, you have the same system up and running on different servers by just having, you know, commanded out one file. So a setup like this is really awesome if you're going to do it. This is just like a template. I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. There's a lot of, you know, things going on, you know, the best practice on doing stuff. But, you know, if you use this as a template, you probably save even if you're going to, you know, expand stuff. So, for instance, I'm going to show you like the web stuff, which is nothing more than web.pp. Again, you see the class name, which is like a namespace again. The only thing I'm going to say, include Apache. So I want the web server. Again, I don't say HTTPD or Apache 2. Just I want the web server. You're going to see here, if the parent's phpMyAdmin, which we defined in our parents.pp, if it's true, include join in web phpMyAdmin. And this file, it's in manifest/web/phpMyAdmin.pp, will actually take care of installing phpMyAdmin. If you don't need it, that's fine too. We just skip it. And you see here, there's a vhost that's been made by Apache vhost. And Apache vhost is included in this one. So we don't care how it makes the vhost. We just say, make a vhost. This is documentation route. This is the port. Make sure you require Apache, because you can't install a vhost before you install Apache, obviously. Well, no, you really can't. You can have like a vhost configuration, so you can have a template where you can have its own parameters or do all kinds of stuff with it. And that's it. If you run this, then your application is pretty much running from the web part. Of course, we need to do a little bit more, like the PHP stuff. Pretty much what we can do, it's not in here, but we said, you know, require PHP, or include PHP, so it's going to, you know, install PHP. We're going to say, I want the MySQL PHP module. I want the PECL Xdebug module, because we're doing development, so we really want Xdebug on that as well. However, the Xdebug is not in the normal repositories for CentOS, but it's in the EPEL repo. And you see here that we actually confined this manifest to CentOS. Because if you're going to run this on Debian, Debian doesn't know EPEL. So if we're going to do this on Debian as well, we probably have to change something here to make sure that Xdebug is, you know, running on the Debian system. Now, this is like really cool, Augias, I think it's called. Has anyone heard of it? I've written an article about it a few days ago on my blog about Augias, because you can use this in PHP as well. What you can do is like, I'm going to set the ini values. This is the file, /etc/php.ini, and the PHP/error reporting has to be E-all and E-strict. So the PHP is like the section PHP, and the error reporting is just a key inside the ini file. But you can do that for pretty much every type of configuration file you can imagine. You see here, we're going to set the date time zone to Europe London. If it's not there, it just adds it. If it's not there, or if it's there, it just changes it into Europe London, which is like really cool, because it's really easy in this case to change configuration files, especially if you're dealing configuration with like set and arc. Well, set and arc are awesome, but changing configuration files can be like a bit of a hassle. But you can do this from PHP as well. So really take a look at the blog and look at Augias. And again, you see that it's required a package PHP, so it cannot do init file settings without PHP package. And this one says notify the service Apache. So as soon as you've done this, restart Apache to make sure that your configuration is up and running. This is it. With just this manifest, we have automated joined in, which is like really awesome because this means you can do it for every other type of project. Now, Puppet by itself has got its quirks, obviously. For instance, it went from version 0.25 to 2.6. Probably a manager was like, you know what? I don't like the 0. Let's move it to 2. So yeah, no, it just, as far as I can tell, it was just to make sure that people know it's stable stuff. Even though it says 0.25, it doesn't sound stable. 2.6 sounds really stable. It doesn't really matter. It's the same version, so there's no version 1 or version 0.26. Now, since 2.6, they changed the interface from XML RPC to REST. I haven't taken a look on how RESTful it actually is. Probably won't, but it's quicker nowadays. So communicating between an agent and client, agent and Puppet master will be quicker. Also, there's only one binary, just like Git. You can do git blame, git check, git push, git pull. You can do the same thing with Puppet. So if you have Puppet, the binary, you've got the master, you've got the certificate authority, you've got the agents. So you can do Puppet master, Puppet agent, Puppet CA. However, a lot of blog posts out there are like the really old versions. So you're going to see like Puppet master D, and you're going to see Puppet D, stuff like that. If you see stuff like that, make sure that you're looking at something 0.25 or older. So things might be different in the newer versions as well. Also, if you're into that kind of thing, Puppet 2.7 switched from GPL version 2 to Apache 2.0, which honestly for me, I don't care, but it can be, you know, it can be useful for some of the users out there. Now, I showed you a bit on how joined in benefited from the Puppet stuff, but how does it benefit you? Pretty much it keeps all developers in sync, because if we're going to use memcache in joined in, we just change the manifest, and we just say to everybody, well, rerun the manifest, or in 30 minutes or something like that. Everybody has memcached at that point. If you're going to use like a DTAP suite, like development, testing, acceptance, and production, they're all in sync if they're going to use all their Puppet manifest. You only do it once, and you can move it over to every other system. And your infrastructure will be part of your project. So it's not like two separate things anymore. It's just one project, infrastructure, and your application. Anyone heard of Vagrant? Okay, I can skip this stuff. I don't have to tell you how awesome Vagrant is then. It's like, Vagrant is a tool for building and distributing virtualized development environments, which basically means it can make your own system and your own infrastructure on the fly. And the only thing you have to do is get a Vagrant file in your source root. This is a very simple one. Is this the joined in one? No, it isn't. What we're going to say here, we got a box named CentOS 6.2 46-bit Puppet. This is the URL. So you can it actually does go onto the internet, download a virtual box, put it on your system, run the box into VirtualBox. It will forward port 80 to 8080. So if you go localhost 8080, you will actually end up in your VirtualBox. And you're going to say here, once you have set up your VirtualBox, go and run Puppet. Like, you know, this is the manifest, this is the module, this is like the main entry point. So what we can do with, in this case, joined in, but you can do it for all projects. If you want to contribute, type these two things in your command line, and in like 5 minutes, well, a little bit more, it was 10 or something, you can actually have a fully working application, and you can, you know, fix all the bugs we still have. So That's it. If you're going to have a new employee in your company and, you don't have to give him, oh, no, you need to install MySQL, and you need to install this, or you need to install that. No, just say, clone this, do vagrant up, and in a few minutes, he's got an up and running system, according to your specification of your project. So every project has got its own specification. If you have a project that is running on 5.1, run it on 5.1. If it's running on 5.3, you don't need to change like your PHP version or do all kinds of really weird things. No, just upgrade, or at least do a vagrant up, and you get a new box just for that application. So that's really, really awesome. So yeah, it downloads the base box, which can take a while because normally they're like 500 megs or more. But once it's downloaded, it will always use that copy. It deploys and boots up a virtual machine on your system. It can be many virtual machines. It runs the provisioner, which is in this case Puppet, but you can use Chef, you can use other ones as well. And that's it, and you're up and running. If you have like a large infrastructure, because you have a separate web server and a separate database server, you can apply them inside your own vagrant file as well. So in this case, we got two virtual machines, a web server and a database server. So the web server is run on port 80. The database server is on 3306. They have different names. So in this case, it will fire up two instances. So you got your web server and you got your database server. I actually have a project that can fire up 14 instances because we're trying to do like scalability and high availability stuff. So we can do things on one virtual machine, but we can also, with a vagrant up, have 14 different machines popping up, and everything is connecting together. So from that point of view, we basically emulated the whole infrastructure, how it's going to run on production. And we can use the same manifest and the same stuff directly to production. So we can test it out in our own environment. So the infrastructure is like part of our code, part of our system, which is like really, really cool. Normally, at this point, I give people the option. Either I do a live demo, and what can possibly go wrong on live demos. There's not enough time, so I won't do it. There's something else I like to talk about, mcollective. There is not enough time for that either, because I only have 3 minutes left. It's like a way to control your whole infrastructure. For developers, it might not be like that interesting because you're talking about hundreds or thousands of servers in this case. However, if you're going to look at Puppet, also look at mcollective. It's like a really awesome system where you can actually query your infrastructure, like how many systems have a database running with 16 gigabytes of memory or less. I want to restart all the Apache services in time zone GMT +5. You can do things like that with help of mcollective. Really awesome. Just take a look at it if you have time. So for now, I just want to tell you, Puppet, it's a configuration management tool. It focuses on the what, not the how. And it scales to even one server or to 100,000 servers, doesn't matter. You can use Vagrant as well in combination with Puppet to set up your development environment. Really try it out if you haven't done so, because it's going to change the way you're going to work. It's useful, sysadmins and developers. So this is where the DevOps thing comes in. We're getting closer together. It keeps your infrastructure versioned. So if something happens on your production environment, you can actually do git blame and to see who changed something and blame him. And yeah, of course, mcollective, which controls your host based on facts, not on names. There is no reason not to manage your infrastructure anymore. There is none. Having only 3 servers is not a reason. Only if you have 1 server, you can still use Puppet. You should use Puppet because of all the perks you're going to get with it. Don't install your development servers, build them through Vagrant. You will be able to join the rest of the pub early, really. Okay, are there any questions? Oh, no! Yes?
We have a hosting company that hosts our live server.
Yeah?
But next to configuration, they do all sorts of other stuff like system monitoring, securing
Yeah.
Well, how does it work together with this?
The monitoring and backup of your hosting company, how it reflects with Puppet. Actually, there is another talk. It's from somebody from Hives. It's on SlideShare. You can look it up, Puppet and Hives. It shows you how to use monitoring through Puppet. So they automate their monitoring process with the help of Puppet. So as soon as an Apache instance will go up, their monitoring server knows about that instance and will automatically monitor that Apache setup and that computer.
If you are going to use Puppet on your live,
Yeah, it doesn't matter because Puppet does not touch anything you're not telling it. So it's not taking over the system. You just say, install the web server. It installs the web server. It doesn't do anything else. So if you got monitoring on that system, that's fine. It doesn't interfere with that. So that's the beauty. It's not like we're taking over the system, we are in control. No, you are in control. You decide what it's going to do, not Puppet. So that's like a different system I know from others as well. But it is possible. It's not a problem. Yes?
also about the production server.
Yeah.
So the hosting party has a web server ready
Yeah.
that we use. But then, how does it work?
What you should do?
Puppet on it?
Yeah, what you normally have. So you got like a net install of your server up and running, which has HHS probably installed. Yeah. So what your hosting provider probably should do is not only install SSH, but also install Puppet. Or if you want to do it yourself. No. You can do that through Puppet. So the only thing you need is like Puppet on a system or SSH if you want it as well. And the Puppet can automatically connect back to your Puppet master, depending on your configuration. And that will see, hey, I need to install the web server, I need to install the MySQL server.
So it's best to coordinate it with your hosting.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you're going to do that and you're going to say, listen, we want to implement Puppet, talk to those guys because they probably need to be aware of it. Well, you can do it without their knowledge, but that would mess up your relation probably. But yeah, it is easy, it is doable. Yeah, the final question?
I've been told that Chef or Puppet, using them as a matter of preference.
Yeah,
What do you think?
Puppet. Well, I can't say Chef, obviously. For me, the reason is I know some of the Puppet guys, so it makes it easier. That's why I got the shitload of T-shirts. But and they have a larger user base, they have a larger community, they have more investment in it nowadays because Google and Yahoo, I think, they invested like a huge sum of money into Puppet Labs. It's ridiculous. They don't know what to do with the money. They throw it out like this. Yeah. This is from Google, basically. No, but yeah, it is a preference. They both do the same thing, more or less. I don't like Chef because of the amount of Ruby that's exposed in Chef. It's better in Puppet. It depends on where you are. In Germany, probably people use more Chef. In America, people use more Puppet. It depends on where you are. It's your preference. They both do pretty much the same thing. But for me, Puppet, it is. Okay, if you have more questions, just come to me after the talk. As said, Puppet Labs have a shitload of money right now, so they really donated a shirt for us. If you want to come over and grab a shirt and grab stickers, be free to do it. I've got a lot of mediums, but a lot of other ones as well. Just take a shirt. Make sure that if you're going to go online in the next 2 minutes, before you go to puppetlabs.com and go to vagrantup.com, go to join in 6254 as well. Rate my talk, please, because it's really useful for us as well. If you want to have more information, Twitter handle, email, blogs, anything else. Okay? Then I would like to thank you.
DPC Radio is a production of iBuildings. The materials presented are copyright of the speakers. This episode is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 2.0 license. iBuildings is a full-service web development company specializing in PHP development. For more information on how we can help you with your next web project, visit our site at ibuildings.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us again for DPC Radio.